Welcome to Successful Philanthropy. I'm your host, Jean Shafiroff. This show is designed to highlight the work of leaders here in the United States and then beyond. Today with us, a fascinating and important guest. Her name, Rebecca Seawright. And Rebecca Seawright is a New York State Assembly member. Let's all welcome Rebecca Seawright. And Rebecca, it is a great honor and pleasure to have you back with us. And I want to start first by asking you, what's new?
Well, thank you, Jean. It's great to be joining you today on your show again. And thank you for all the leadership that you're doing regarding philanthropy and your great humanity. What's new? What's in the news today is the monkeypox virus. And over 1,000 people in New York now, New York City, have the virus. And we've opened dedicated centers out on the east end of Long Island, the Edie Windsor Healthcare Center, part of Southampton Hospital in Hampton Bays, has been administering the monkeypox vaccine to high-risk individuals last week and this week. They've also opened up centers on Fire Island and various places around the state. So we're asking people to, wear masks again and take the same precautions they took very early on with the COVID outbreak. And I know people are tired of masking and tired of testing, but we are looking to see a surge, unfortunately, in the fall after Labor Day, and a new mutated strain will be out, and there's not a vaccine for it. So we're asking people to take precaution, wear a mask, and test often. You can order home test kits at www.usps.com, and they'll send you 9 COVID home tests in the mail. So if you have symptoms, please get tested or test yourself, and just carry forth with the same precautions that you did when COVID first broke out.
Now, Rebecca, what exactly are the symptoms? I've read that this is a very, very mild disease, but maybe I'm wrong. Can you talk a little bit about symptoms and who is more susceptible, or are we all susceptible?
So the monkeypox virus is a close cousin to smallpox, which was eradicated through global vaccination efforts in the 1980s. It's not as transmissible or as fatal as smallpox. Some researchers worry that it's going to mutate and become a greater threat to humans. The LGBT community is at high risk, and social network of gay, bisexual, and other men who have sex with men. If you have multiple or anonymous sex partners, your likelihood to exposure is high. So we're asking that you take precaution, and if you are eligible and high risk for the monkeypox vaccination, that you go to one of the centers around the state and get vaccinated. Avoid close skin-to-skin contact with people who have had a rash that looks like monkeypox. Avoid intimate contact. Do not share eating utensils or cups. Avoid touching, bedding, towels, or clothing of a person that is with monkeypox or is contagious. Wash your hands often with soap and water, or use an alcohol-based hand sanitizer. The virus can spread from person to person through direct contact with the infectious rash, scabs, or bodily fluids, respiratory secretions during prolonged face-to-face contact, or during intimate physical contact such as kissing, cuddling, or sex. So again, we're just encouraging people to take precaution, and if you are high risk, to get vaccinated.
Thank you. And now what about the COVID pandemic? Are we pretty much cleared? I understand people are still getting it, but it's a much milder case. What should we be doing about that? And are you expecting an outbreak in the fall again?
So we are expecting a surge in the fall, after summer, after Labor Day. Was talking to a friend recently that was on a boat with 100 people, and everyone on the boat the next day came down with COVID. So one person on the boat spread it to all the others. And also a lot of weddings happen in the summer. I was talking to another person that went to a large 300-person wedding. They were all hugging and dancing and having a wonderful time. They all got back home and came down with COVID. So it affects different people with different symptoms. Some people get very, very sick. A person that went to this wedding had followed all the rules and taken all the precautions and had been vaccinated and boosted and came down with a very, very bad case of COVID. So it does affect people differently. The research is showing us that we will see a surge after Labor Day. It won't be as contagious and it won't be as dangerous. The symptoms won't be as bad as that original Delta variant. So we're not seeing the hospitals overloaded with people, but the hospital, I have 8 hospitals in my district here on the Upper East Side in Roosevelt Island. And hospital administration is talking about the surge that's going to come after Labor Day.
So you're suggesting to wear a mask and then maybe eat outside whenever possible and try to stay away from big crowds indoors and intimate contact, correct?
Correct. And if you feel like it, wear a face mask. If you're at a crowded party or wedding or certainly on a boat, take some hand sanitizer with you and wash your hands with soap often. Take your hand sanitizer and also wear your mask if you're having close-to-close conversations with large crowds.
Is it expected that we will be required to wear masks in the fall, or is it going to be something optional?
I think it's going to be something optional, but again, we need to see, how this spreads, how quickly it spreads, the number of people. Is it going to go through our school system? Is it going to be rampant in our senior citizen centers where our seniors are so vulnerable? So right now, no mask mandate, but that could change depending on what we see in the fall. But I tell everyone, just take the same precautions you took when COVID first came out. And that is wash your hands often, wear your face mask, and just take general precaution.
And that's all good advice. And I think most of us, when we were wearing a mask and walking around with hand sanitizer and using it, well, we came down with very few colds. And most of us never got sick. Now that we're a little more lax, well, people are getting colds and coming down with COVID and possibly a monkeypox. So it's always a good idea to take precautions. Now, Rebecca, you recently passed or was instrumental in passing the Equal Rights Amendment in the state of New York. First, I want to say congratulations because I know you were working on that a very, very long time. And second, what exactly does the passage of the Equal Rights Amendment in the state of New York mean for women and for men?
Well, thank you, Jean. The Equality Amendment, the Equal Rights Amendment, is something that I've been sponsoring and working on for over 5 years and have passed it several times in the Assembly. And we basically broadened the bill, got an agreement with the Senate and the executive weighed in, and we passed it in special session. And what we've done is we've made a broad amendment, including disability rights, so disabled people are protected against discrimination, women, the LGBT community, our elder population. And so we've also put in there pregnancy and pregnancy outcome. We know situations where a woman is 9 months pregnant, she was in a car accident, she was prosecuted for the death of the fetus, even though it was found that the car accident, somebody hit her car. It wasn't her fault. And so we've taken it out of the criminal statute in New York in 2019 in the Reproductive Health Act. But now by codifying this into the state constitution, we're adding protections. You know, laws can always be changed and overturned, but by enshrining it in our state constitution, it's there forever. So the process is you have to pass a constitutional amendment in 2 successive sessions. So we just finished the second year of a 2-year session cycle. So now it has to pass in one of the years of the next 2-year cycle. and I believe it will. And then it goes in 2024 on the ballot. That'll be a presidential year before the voters of New York State as a referendum. And once it passes, then it will update the Constitution, which hasn't been updated since 1938. Basically, updating protections against discrimination in New York State against varying classes of protection. And right now we have the human rights law, and it covers some of this, not all of it. And so by updating the Constitution, it's there forever. And as our late Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg once stated, every country has the Equal Rights Amendment, ours does not, and we'll never have complete equality until we're recognized in the Constitution.
This is all wonderful, wonderful work, Rebecca. And for the audience today, we are with Rebecca Seawright. She is a New York State Assemblywoman. She's just talked about the monkey virus vaccine, the outlook for COVID, and also the recent passage of the Equal Rights Amendment in the state of New York and how that will affect us in the future. Switching to another topic, Rebecca, what about gun control in the state of New York? We're all reading about a lot of violence, particularly in New York City. And where are we with gun control?
So in our special session this summer, we were called back by Governor Hochul to deal with two issues. One of them was my Equal Rights Amendment bill, and the other was gun control, and to pass some additional legislation. So we raised the age from 18 to 21. We outlawed ghost guns. We passed legislation that puts a micro number, like inventory number, on the gun, on the bullet, so it can be traced and tracked. So we're passing in New York State additional legislation to strengthen our anti-gun violence, to strengthen our laws. And everyone wants to see our crime numbers go down. I think coming out of COVID, we've seen additional mental illness. People have lost their jobs, they've lost their homes. And so I think that by strengthening our laws in New York State, we're going to see crime go down, and that's our objective.
Yes, and what about food insecurity? It's big news now everywhere in our country that lines at the food pantries are all increasing, not as high as during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. But what I'm reading is because food prices are now up about 12%, and as of today, gasoline prices per gallon are over $4 a gallon, people are really struggling. And this is not just in New York, but across the nation. What are we doing as a state to relieve some of the food insecurity that's going on right now?
So in our state budget, we're giving additional funding for our community-based organizations like Meals on Wheels that deliver free meals to our senior population, and kosher meals to our seniors that are Jewish and keep kosher. So we're investing more money into our community-based organizations like our senior citizen centers that provide free meals. If a senior can't get to the center, many of our centers will actually deliver to their doorman or their place of residence a free hot meal. And for many of our senior citizens, this is the only meal that they're getting that day. And so it's so important that we continue to fund and try to eliminate and eradicate food insecurity around New York State. I know our office, if you're interested in volunteering, you can sign up and we will put you in touch with a nonprofit organization, the Stanley Isaacs House, that delivers meals every day to people that are shut in and can't prepare meals and can't get out. And so it makes a person feel good to volunteer. And so we're encouraging you to check on your elderly friends, to check on your neighbors. And if you have excess cash, make a donation to a nonprofit organization that supports food insecurity. And if you have time to volunteer, you can call our office and we will put you in touch with a community-based organization that delivers free meals.
Yes, now getting back to the crime issue, many people are very upset because they say someone goes out and commits multiple crimes and gets a really a slap on the wrist and is back on the streets. And particularly in New York City, people are very concerned because they say the city is not safe. What can we do to ensure the safety of our citizens?
Well, that's a great question, Jean. And the number one thing I tell people is be alert. Always look behind you. Know if someone is following you. Be aware of your surroundings. I remember after 9/11, they said if you see an empty backpack laying on a sidewalk and you don't know whose it is, it could have a bomb in it. So call the police or call 311 and report it. The same thing with crime. If you see suspicious activity, pick up the phone and call 311 or call the nearest precinct or call 911 and report it, because the more calls that the police get, they will dispatch a SWAT team to that location to monitor, to make rounds, and to check on the suspicious activity that you've seen. We've also tweaked the bail reform laws in Albany this legislative session. And like I said, we're making it much, much harder for people to buy guns by raising the age. We're strengthening our gun laws. I'm a member of the Legislative Gun Caucus, where we talk and we compare the laws in New York State to the other state legislatures around the country. And New York is a leader on so many fronts. And you think of New York as really on the cutting edge, a progressive state, passing the Equal Rights Amendment, marriage equality, and strengthening our gun laws. A lot of the other states look to New York on the legislation that we have passed. And so we're going to continue to analyze, to speak to people, to talk about crime, because it's a serious issue and we want people to feel safe, to patronize their favorite restaurant in New York City, and we want businesses to come back full force. And they already are. There are fewer empty storefronts and harder to get reservations at your favorite place. So we are bouncing back from COVID.
No question, New York is coming back, and it's coming back stronger than ever. Now, Mayor Adams has been a great proponent of supporting the police force. Recently, during the summer of 2022, a large group of police officers and New York City detectives all quit. What can we do to strengthen the police force and do something so that individuals have more confidence in our police force?
So I think one thing that we can do, Mayor Adams is a former police detective and is a strong supporter. He knows what it takes to reduce crime because he's walked the beat. He's talked the talk. He's served as a detective. I think one thing that we can do is invest more city and state funding in the police cadet program at John Jay College, which is part of the City University of New York. We need to diversify our police force. We need to recruit people from all sectors, women, Asian people, minority people, people of color, women, into our police force so that people feel safe in their community. We need a diverse police force, and we need to invest more dollars in training for the police cadet program and do a wide sweep of recruitment.
And I'm with you. I would love to see more dollars going towards police recruitment, police education, and incentives for people to go into the field. I think it's very, very important, and I like what Mayor Adams is doing, and I like what you're saying, Rebecca, and I want to thank you, because I think if we want to have a safe city, we need a strong and we need a good police force, and I'm happy to see that things are being changed. Now, moving to another topic, education. Education of our young people is so incredibly important, and I often hear that people feel that the educational divide, especially in places like New York City, is too great, and that divide being between the private schools and the public schools. And what can the state do to change that?
Well, you know, Jean, when I got elected 8 years ago, I fought to be appointed to the Education Committee in the Assembly and got that very competitive appointment because I wanted to make sure that I returned back to my district on the Upper East Side and Roosevelt Island state funding for the public schools. And I do believe that we have some of the best public schools in the state right here in my district. And so I want to make sure that we continue to build new schools with the School Construction Authority. Right now we have Eleanor Roosevelt High School on the Upper East Side, which is a real gem, and the Julia Richmond Education Complex, which hosts a high school. And we need more schools and we need to update them. Recently, I awarded a $500,000 grant to PS 290 on East 82nd Street for a rooftop terrace. And so I believe that we need full equality of our school funding around the state. The kids in Buffalo deserve just as good a school as the kids on the Upper East Side. And we have some real rock star principals and superintendents. And so we need to give them the support that they deserve. And I know I cut my teeth as a PTA mom and have used those skills time and time again as a state legislator, and just want to continue as a member of the Education Committee to fight for additional funding for our public school system here in New York.
And I think education is so important because if we don't train the next generation or our youngest generation to be intelligent and to be upstanding citizens, then what are we doing? So thank you for your incredible work there. Another topic, the elderly. I know you've been very involved with programs for the elderly in New York City, and very often the elderly are forgotten. And describe a little bit about what you've done for the elderly, Rebecca, because I know you've done so very much.
So we established a high school program. A lot of the high school students need to get community service. And so we patched our senior citizens up with a high school student to get community service to help our elder population with their cell phones, with setting up voice message, with their computers. We get calls from people, our elderly population that sit on a lot of boards and foundations, and they can't get on their Zoom, for an example. And so we patch them up with a high school student who has wonderful computer skills and help them navigate the computer system, the internet. Many of them use Facebook to see pictures and photos of their grandkids. And so, but they do have challenges with the computer and with their cell phone. And so one of the things that we're focusing on is our high school population, helping our senior citizens, and it benefits both the student and the elderly resident. We're also encouraging people to sign up for Meals on Wheels. So they're assured of a hot meal if they need help with their groceries or picking up their pharmacy items. We have a half-price Metro MTA MetroCard van that comes in front of our office every 2 weeks. Senior citizens, many of them can't go down into the subway. They don't have the funds to take a cab, but they can apply for and get a half-price MTA discount Metro card. And to refill that card, they can come in front of our office on 79th in York. We're right next to the post office, and they can refill their half-price Metro card. So we try to make it easy for them. They don't have to go down to the MTA. They don't have to go down into the subway. They just simply come to this mobile van parked in front of the office, and they can get their card refilled.
And this is really great work. And I want to thank you, Rebecca. You do so much for so many. Now, Rebecca, you have been a New York State Assembly member since 2014. What advice would you give to a young person who maybe wants to get involved in the field of politics?
Well, I would strongly encourage doing an internship with a city, state, or federal elected official. Many of us depend very much on our interns in our office. We have an intern from the Simon Wiesenthal Center this summer in our office. They do wonderful research, and the intern gets a strong view of what an elected official does, what their day looks like, their schedule, very often. I take the intern to hearings down at City Hall or to various meetings around the district. So I would encourage them to get involved by interning and then volunteering with a nonprofit, a community-based organization, and give back to society. It's very rewarding.
Thank you. And finally, Rebecca, we have about 30 seconds left. Is there anything you'd like to leave the audience with?
I would just say have a wonderful summer and be safe and practice those precautions that you learned when COVID first broke out. Wash your hands often. And if you're in tight settings with a lot of face-to-face conversation and contact in crowded spaces, go ahead and opt to wear a face mask. And where you can be outdoors this summer and enjoying the fresh air, I encourage you to do that. But if you go into the ocean waters, watch out for sharks.
Thank you, Rebecca Seawright. You've really been a wonderful, wonderful guest. And again, I thank you for all of your work for the people of the state of New York and for the people of our country. This concludes Successful Philanthropy. Our guest today, New York State Assembly member Rebecca Seawright. I'm Jean Shafiroff, your host. I'll see you next week.